Good morning, class. I'm Chief Castro, and I will be your instructor for lesson topic 1.12, steam cutoff pressure switches. A little bit about myself. I've been in the Navy for 16 years. I've served on board 2 ships. I've been on 4 deployments. I've done 4 shipyard availabilities. I'm a fully qualified catapult technician. So if you have any questions whatsoever throughout the lesson topic, please do not hesitate to ask. I will now cover your enabling objectives for this lesson topic. In this lesson, we will state the purpose of the components of the steam cutoff switch in accordance with applicable publications. We will describe the installation of the components within the steam cutoff switch in accordance with applicable publications. And our reference material for this lesson topic is NAVAIR 51, Tech 15, Alpha Bravo Bravo, Tech 4.2. So basically what that's saying is we're going to talk about the steam cutoff pressure switch, some of the parts that make it up, some of the subcomponents, and how it works. By a show of hands, how many sailors in here have actually worked on a steam catapult? Okay, well it looks like we have a large wealth of knowledge already as it stands in this classroom. And by the end of this lesson topic, you'll have even that much more knowledge loaded with you to take back with you to the ship and share with your shipmates. For classroom norms, I advise that if you decide to have a snack or a drink, please pick up your trash and take it with you as you exit the classroom. If you need to take a phone call or a text message, please step out of the classroom quietly and take it outside in a P-way or outside of the building. I will stress that after each unit, you will have a test to take. So you have to try your hardest, ask lots of questions, and be motivated. Motivation is key, okay? Because there will be a test, and to pass that test, you need to get at least a 75% or greater. Okay, so try your hardest, be motivated, and take lots of notes and ask lots of questions. For safety, in the event of an emergency, you will follow my lead. We will exit the double doors, we will walk down the corridor, we will exit those double doors, we will cross the street safely, and we will muster in the green grassy area adjacent to this building to take full muster and accountability of all hands. Are there any questions? Okay, well, we will now move on to our first portion of this lesson topic. The purpose of the steam cutoff pressure switch installation. So the whole purpose of the steam cutoff pressure switch installation is to initiate launch complete. Now, as your steam pistons pass through your catapult trough installation assembly, they're going to pass through the cutout for your steam cutoff pressure switch assembly, and that's going to initiate launch complete, which eventually closes your launch valve and opens your exhaust valves. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the lesson topic. Are there any questions? Okay, well, let's go to move on. So in this picture here, this is depicting the steam going through the cylinders. Now again, during catapult certification or during the initial outfitting of the equipment, we normally install or you see installation about the 162 to 210 feet of the catapult. Now depending on your hull or your mod catapult, that may vary in distance. But what you see here is the box or your installation assembly, and you can see where that cutout is on your catapult trough. And as the steam passes that cutout, that's when we get that launch complete or that initiation of your launch complete. Are there any questions? Okay, well, if there are no questions, I have a question for you. At what point of the catapult are the steam cutoff pressure switch installation normally installed? About what parameter? Go ahead, ABE3. Outstanding. Approximately 162 feet to 210 feet. Okay? And remember, depending on what mod catapult you have or what hull you are on, it's going to vary a little bit based on your situation. If there are no further questions, we'll move on to the next lesson topic. Okay, so now we're moving on to talking about some of those components, right? So you do have different components. You have your adapter flange assembly and your flexible hose assembly. Okay, so your adapter flange, all right, you can see it in this picture right here, and it kind of connects your flexible hose to your piping, all right, and eventually that goes down to your drain piping, but the ultimate source is going to your steam cutoff pressure switches, which are these two boxes right here. Everybody can see those two boxes. Those are your actual steam cutoff pressure switches. And the whole goal is to get that steam passage all the way up through this piping, and eventually it's hitting your cutoff pressure switches, right? We also refer to these as your S790 Alpha and Bravo, okay? So that's the whole purpose, get the steam from the trough to the switches to initiate that launch complete. Are there any questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. We'll talk about the steam manifold and your pressure switches themselves. Okay, so moving on to talking about the steam manifold, you do have a diameter or orifice of diameter of 3/16 of an inch located within your steam manifold. Your pressure switches themselves, they're actuated by 20 psi of steam pressure. Again, they're actuated by 20 psi of steam pressure. Doesn't seem like a lot, however, it's enough, and it's just what we need to get those steam cutoff pressure switches to actuate to initiate that launch complete phase of operations. Are there any questions? Okay, well, if there are no questions, then I have a question for you. At what pressure are the steam cutoff pressure switches actuated? AV2, go ahead. Phenomenal, 20 psi of steam pressure, right? And that's 20 psi of steam pressure. That's what we get as those launching engine piston assemblies travel down your catapult trough, right? Down your launching engine cylinders, and as those piston assemblies pass that cutout, that's when we get that launch complete phase of operations, right? Well, if there are no further questions, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. So again, we talked about the 20 psi to actuate your steam cutoff pressure switches. Now we're talking about the 10 psi to when they actually go back to their normal position. Okay, and again, you see a larger breakup. You see your steam accumulator here, your launch valve assembly, and your cylinders, and then it kind of blows up that image of your steam cutoff pressure switch enclosure, right? So again, you have an orifice union, your drain, flexible hose. This right here would be your intrusion-proof enclosure, right? So we have to make sure that we maintain integrity, the highest of, right, around those steam cutoff pressure switches, and it's an intrusion-proof enclosure so that nobody could go in there and sabotage anything, okay? Very, very important piece of the catapult. That's why it has that box. And again, 10 psi or below, those steam cutoff pressure switches are returning back to the normal position. It's actuated at 20, returning to the normal position at 10 psi. Are there any questions? Okay, well then we'll go ahead and move on and talk a little bit more about operations. Okay, so we've briefly discussed some of the operations already as we've been moving through the lessons. And again, you have a larger breakdown, a little bit of the CSV right here. And it says during the launch, the piston assembly passes through the power cylinders, which we already discussed, right? We talked about those power cylinders passing through that cutout, and when you get that 20 psi, that's when your launch complete is actually initiated, right? Again, going back the reverse direction, after you get the 20 psi passing through this cutout, they go back to the normal position at 10 psi. That's it. Not a lot of pressure going on right there, but those are the important numbers to remember that you want to take note of. The 20 psi for actuation and the 10 psi for the return to normal position. Are there any questions? No questions at all. Okay, well then we'll go ahead and move on to the summary and review. In this lesson, we stated the purpose of the components of the steam cutoff switch in accordance with applicable publications, and we described the installation of the components within the steam cutoff switch in accordance with the applicable publication. Okay, if there are no questions, I have a few questions for you to sum up the lesson topic. At what pressure are the steam cutoff switches actuated? AB3, go ahead right here. Excellent. 20 psi, the steam cutoff pressure switches are actuated. Now remember, they're also going back to the normal position at 10 psi. What size is the diameter of the orifice in your steam cutoff switch installation? AB1, go ahead. Outstanding. 3/16 of an inch, right? 3/16 of an inch, and then as of your diameter for that orifice. Now remember, there is a maintenance action. We want to verify that that's the actual orifice diameter when we take measurements within that, all right? That's just a cliff note for you to remember as you go back to the ship, okay? And we're verifying that 3/16 of an inch when we do the maintenance on that. And last question. By what means do we protect the steam cutoff pressure switches from sabotage or damage? AB3? Phenomenal. The anti-sabotage intrusion proof. It's an intrusion proof enclosure. So that enclosure, again, we keep locked at all times to ensure that nobody tinkers or messes with our steam cutoff pressure switches. They're very, very critical. The last thing we need is somebody going in there and messing with our equipment, because in the end, that would eventually jeopardize mission readiness, which is what we don't want, right? So include intrusion-proof enclosure. Are there any other questions? Okay, I observed no questions. Well, again, as for safety, in the event of an emergency, fire, flooding, anything at all, you're gonna follow my lead. We're gonna exit the double doors, and we're gonna go down the corridor, we're gonna cross the street safely, and we will muster and take full accountability of all hands to make sure everybody is alive and well. I am Chief Castro, and this has been lesson topic 1.12, steam cutoff pressure switches. Thank you very much.